are you gonna do the opening, you're gonna do the opening prayer today, huh?
I am, yes.
Good, looking forward to it.
For the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, my friends. Kathy, got a roll call for us, please?
Here.
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 If anybody's here, it's Christine.
Here.
We can hear you,
Here.
man.
Here.
All right, very good, thank you. Stephen R6 here to open us in a prayer.
Dear God, just want to say thanks for this beautiful day today, the low humidity, the cool temperatures, and I just want to say thank you for what seemed like a successful summer we had. The carnival, the parade, the concerts, the car shows. We were blessed. We were blessed. And I just ask that, I'm into blessing, and I just ask you to bless our businesses in town here, for the business leaders, that you would give them guidance and direction and wisdom on how to run the business. And I just ask for them to experience prosperity in their businesses. And again, thank you for each person here that helps make this city run. I am grateful for them. And I just ask as they have the meeting today that you would give them guidance and direction and wisdom. I ask that you would just bless their lives and their families, and if they're going through any hard times, anything struggles, that you would just let them know how much that you love them and that you care for them and that you are there for them and each one of us. And for our first responders, the fire personnel and the police, thank you for them. Thank you for what they do every day, the sacrifices that they make. And thank you for the experiences of the safety that we've had in this town as they work to keep our city safe. And bless their families and their marriages, their relationships. And one other thing is the things that they experience when they go on calls and the things that they see. I just ask that you would give them grace and mercy to help them process this, even though there's peer supports and different outlets. Just protect their hearts and their minds with everything. And again, thank you for everything. Bless this meeting. In your name, amen.
Amen, thanks, Steve. All right, my friends, we have any liaison reports? Anything going on?
I have a
You wanna
comment,
talk
Mayor.
about ComEd, right?
Yes, if I could, yeah. So we've, many of the Lockport residents were in, we have an electric aggregation with Will County Government League back in 2018. It was the 3-year contract. We've had several probably over the last decade. The last contract, we really, as we looked at renewing it, we couldn't find any savings for the residents, and so the decision was made to not renew with Constellation Energy. Everything per contract falls back to ComEd. We have gotten a few emails, a few phone calls. We updated our website when we first had this news back in March. We just did it again today just to let everybody know. We've received a few emails and phone calls, and if all of you get those calls, you're welcome to send them my way, and I can explain the intricacies of it. But at the end of the day, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to opt in or opt out. It just goes back to ComEd. But if you go to ComEd's website, you can choose another provider of your choice if you don't want to stay with ComEd. ComEd, I think, is the lowest right now, so I'll also take advantage of that until probably next summer. But we just wanted to let you all know that if you get those calls, that that's what's occurring. And there's information on our website about it, and we're happy to take any calls. So.
And also, everyone might be aware, I know I got one at my home, but they have sent out the notices that that has happened.
There's a small group of homeowners that have solar, that have a separate kind of agreement, that we've had a few calls about that. It's a little confusing, but they will be getting a separate letter from ComEd, and they've been notified about the differences in their contracts because they sell energy back to the grid. So, but there's only like 23 households that have those. So that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, anybody else have anything?
I was just curious, I was out of town, but is there anything with state and the crossing, anything that we need to be concerned about? I mean, they were serious.
Oh, you mean with the railroad tracks today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What's the status on that? I know the gate was going up and down.
Oh, yeah, the CN, I did talk to them today. The police were called about 12:48 today, and we had to put an officer on scene. We've alerted CN. They had some kind of signal failure at Second. These signals are kind of bunched together, and so one crossing error creates other errors. They've assured me that they're going to do everything they can to try to get this corrected. They said our crossings are unique in the country, and there's some design issues that they're trying to still work through. We had a lot of problems in the winter last year. They seem to have gotten through those. We've had a few what we call ghost train incidents this year that we've made them aware of. I've talked to Rich about letting patrol know that they need to call that 800 number on the actual crossing. If they ever see it happen, it logs in the system. They put on, actually they put a new specialist on this kind of incident that keeps happening. And so they're taking it seriously, and they're trying to do their best to, they don't want it to happen either. So we'll continue to follow up with them, but it did happen again today. I think it was down, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 minutes? I don't know how long it was down.
Yeah, it was down. It was down quite a while. It was probably
Almost an
they were
hour.
having issues with them going up and down for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've let their highest people know that we were disappointed and that we want them to continue to try to fix the problem, so.
I just have something real quick. Sunday, if you weren't fortunate enough to get one of the 500 tickets that were sold for the Sweets Crawl, from 2 to 4, there will be a band down here by City Hall, and the Legacy Ranch is gonna be here selling water and some of their shirts and hats and stuff to make some money for the ranch. So come and listen to the band if you can't do the Sweets Crawl, and have some fun on Sunday.
I wanted to refer my liaison report to the chief.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the City Council, good evening. I have a couple items here. Yesterday, Tuesday, September 14th, we held promotional ceremonies for Detective Ellenson, who's promoted sergeant, and Officer Taco, who's also promoted sergeant. Also, I regret to announce the passing of retired Lockport Police Department Lieutenant Dan Tully Sr. He served 29 years of dedicated service with the Lockport Police Department, worked from 1966 through 1995. There will be a wake that will be held this Friday at O'Neill's Funeral Home from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the police department will be conducting a law enforcement walkthrough for him starting at 3:30 p.m.
All right, thanks. All right, anybody have anything else? Couple things coming up. Well, first off, what just happened is World War II days. Anybody go to it? It was a blast, right? I think it was the Park District's best old World War II days. Well, it was World War II, Vietnam, Civil War, so it was military days. That's right. So they did a great job. So if you've never been, you gotta make sure you got to go next year. It's just a really, really great event. This next week, we have our first Chevron kickoff meeting with is it the CAT program?
True. So we have what we've termed a master plan advisory panel, because the Chevron didn't want to reuse the Citizens Advisory Panel because that was their name. They didn't want it to get confused.
Yeah, branding's very important.
Yeah, right. So we changed it to Master Plan Advisory Panel. We have 12 people who have volunteered their time, some of which were on the former CAP with Chevron that have been a part of the process for 20, 30 years now. And others that are completely brand new. Some just moved into the community less than a year ago. Some have been here for many years. So we've got a really pretty broad swath of folks within a group of 12 that will help us navigate this process. They will be meeting at 6:30 next Monday evening. And then we have kind of an internal staff meeting with the consultant team at 3:30. To kind of discuss a bunch of kickoff administrative things to kind of get the project launched and moving.
That'd be really good. We're looking forward to that. Actually, Wendy reached out to him. You guys ever been to the all-night flea market at DuPage County Fairgrounds? Or they do the Halloween one, right? So it's crazy fun, right? So Zirco Productions does that. So I had a conversation with him the other day. I was telling him about the property, and he was like, I'm very, very interested. So that doing one of those Zirco all-night flea markets or something, it was going to be a long time before it's fully developed. So that was pretty fun. So anyways, he may come out next week, and I have conversations like this on occasion, but I just thought this was funny or interesting to talk about. And then don't forget, next week is Locktoberfest, right? So that should be a great, another venue to see how things play out over there. So looking forward to that. All right. Nobody else, anything else? There is one thing I wanted to just review for you guys. So yesterday, there was a conference call with the Will County Department of Health, and they were giving a number of updates about, the status of things that are going on as far as COVID goes. On the phone call were some fire chiefs and other mayors and such. So I did have Ben forward that link to you guys so you guys can look at this presentation. Just quickly, some highlights of it. Most of the presentation was about demographics, how many white, Hispanic, Black, Asian folks, percentage-wise, have received the vaccine, for instance. White is 62.5%, Hispanic is 18.2%, Blacks 12.2%, Asian 6%. They do make up lesser amounts of the population, but just percentage-wise, these are things that they focused on in the presentation. They talked about third doses, possibly for people who are immunosuppressed. They talked about boosters, not yet approved yet, but they talked a little bit about that. Positivity rate in Will County on 9/13 was 5.3%. Something else they talked about. There was a stat in here for Lockport. Currently, there's 73 cases in the city of Lockport. Some of the other things on here were just contact tracing information. This one was interesting. Where people get exposed, the number one place is behavioral and mental health facilities, college, universities, group homes, correctional facilities, workplace, sports teams, daycare, and then the pie just gets really skinny slices. So again, if you guys want to take a closer look at that presentation, it has some of that information on there. They did agree to meet with us or have these phone calls once a month. So as we continue on with this, one thing that was interesting, though, they talked about some of the hospitals were there, spokespeople from it. And I thought this was important because, when you listen to the news, it just seems like our hospitals are filled with COVID patients and everyone's on a ventilator. But just to give a better perspective of it, like, for instance, at Silver Cross, there's 40 patients there who have COVID. Now, they didn't talk about their total amount of patients they have, but like, for instance, Amita Bolingbrook did, and they have 16 people at their hospital with, COVID, but that's out of 87 people. So there's 87 people in the emergency ICU, and 16 of them have COVID. 3 of them are unvaccinated. One thing they were not specific about was what constitutes unvaccinated. That was a question that came up they didn't have an answer for, because officially you're not vaccinated after your first shot. Even after your second shot, you have to wait 2 weeks before you're considered vaccinated. So that was not information that they had. 13 were unvaccinated, 3 were vaccinated. St. Joe's and Bolingbrook has 311 patients, and there they have 30 patients are COVID. So one of the things is, it's not that they're overwhelmed with COVID, is that they really have become short-staffed over the last year and a half. Either people retired and they weren't replaced in nursing staff, or they also are suffering from the same thing every business is suffering from, and that's the entry-level jobs, which are hugely important. They're the folks that will, take you from your room to X-ray and up to, wherever. They just don't have them. One of the nurses I had talked to said that, you may be scheduled for an X-ray at 9 a.m., but they may not get there till 5 because they just don't have the entry-level people to move folks around. So it really, there's a lot of difficulty with staffing, and that's, for a variety of reasons. And then there were a number of questions that were asked that they did not have answers to, but they said they would get back to us on. One of the questions was, is there data available on the different types of vaccines that have experienced breakthrough cases? For instance, which vaccines have a higher breakthrough case count? That's not something that they knew. And I think that's helpful for people that are hesitant. It's like, well, do I take the Johnson & Johnson or the Moderna or the Pfizer? They said they would get back to us on that. Our boosters, if they come out a different formula, it seems that breakthrough cases seem to be blamed on Delta, but do the vaccines need to be tweaked to take, or is it going to be the same formula? They'll get back to us on that. How does the health department and IDPH determine the difference between the strains of COVID-19? When somebody takes a test, does it actually tell you whether it's the Delta variant, or is it just assumed at this point? They did not have an answer for that. There was something regarding PremHas. I think it was one of the firemen asked that question. As far as like testing goes, again, they asked what tests are better. Can a department use these new Binex tests at Walgreens, or does it have to be specific, especially as, this thing from the president was, put forth about being tested for 100, employees or more. So do they know if there's a specific test that's required or demanded? There's another question that was interesting, and that was, is there access to the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program? That was something that was set up in the 80s, because all vaccines, by the way, manufacturers are immune from lawsuits. That's not just for these new vaccines. So in the 80s, the government set up a fund that, if you do have negative effects from, your measles shot, you can access this National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. Can COVID negative effects access that? It's still kind of sketchy. It seems like that they made an amendment that says yes, but they don't currently have all of what those negative effects are. They just don't have the data. So it's hard for them to say, okay, if you're suffering from this, well, I don't know if it's from COVID. So they don't actually have that. So it's kind of hazy at the moment. Questions were asked if vaccinated people can catch COVID, which it happens, and what's their contagious level. For instance, in workplaces, only unvaccinated people are required to test regularly. Why not vaccinated as well if they can spread the virus? They were going to get back to us on that. And then the last one, which was kind of, I think, a larger question was, according to the Congressional Research Service, it was a report dated from April of this year. It says a vaccine mandate ordered through an executive mandate, whether it's from the president or through our governor, it really is unprecedented. While vaccines mandates are allowable, and when they're challenged, they're upheld at the Supreme Court, it's always after they're made into a law. It's never, so that means it went through the legislature, and then it was made a law. Currently, with it just being mandates from the executive branch, which, is not precedent, will the legislatures, whether it's in the state or the federal, actually have this out and make it a law? It's important, as pointed out, that the importance of it is this is really where all the concerns are hashed out, right? We don't want to turn our council meeting into, it's this, it's that. It's really not for us. We don't have the experts in here. That's where you debate it at a legislative, hearing, and they can bring all the experts in and just kind of get to the bottom of it. Instead, right now, it just seems to all be hashed out on social media. Everybody believes that this is an important step that's being skipped right now. So They were asked about that, about it going through and actually being made a law. And also, because it's not a law, what sort of liabilities do private businesses hold if anyone in their employ whose continued employment is dependent on them receiving a COVID vaccine, if they suffer negative health effects, are they held liable? So because it's not a law, if you're a business and say, well, I'm going to make you take this in order to stay here, are they liable if there's anything bad? Like, I imagine if any other health procedure that was demanded of an employee, and if it went bad, that, you know, would it be on the company? So those are all outstanding questions that they said they would try to get answers for. I know one question that, you know, we sent through the governor directly had to do with the fact that there's no metrics currently on his mandates. In the past, if you remember, every time they made a, you know, whatever it was, like, you know, we have to do social distancing, or if there was capacity limits in restaurants, for instance, it was when our positivity rate reached a certain number, that's when we could go into a next phase, right? When a vaccine was, you know, made, then we can go into phase 5. All those things had, you know, kind of parameters. We asked, you know, where are the parameters this time? Just there really are none. The response on that one was, well, it's just so volatile, we can't give you an answer. So I think really what they need to do, and kind of pushing on this, is that, you know, you need to give us the end game. Is the end game now zero COVID? Is the end game a certain positivity rate? Because it's really creating a lot of anxiety, I think, within the culture. So just giving you an update. So those were questions that were put forth, both to the governor's office and to the IDPH. As they get answers, I will share them with you. So as far as internally, what we've decided to do is, because OSHA has not given any rules, we are a 100+ you know, employee entity. So, you know, Ben and I have talked about this, and it's like, look, until there's actual rules that are, you know, put out there, we're just going to do our status quo, which is just do what you feel is right for yourself when it comes to vaccination. I did ask Ben to get, like, you know, 60 or so self-test kits, and have them available at Public Works, police station, here. If anyone feels like it's just something they want to take one, keep it at home. If they wake up feeling crummy, take a test. If you're positive, stay home. It's as simple as that, right? So we will continue to make those available for people. So that's the status at the moment. Just want to give you guys an update.
Get paid for the time that they're off, correct?
Right now, the federal law changed, and so they have to use their PTO time, their sick time or vacation time. You know,
But what if they don't have any left or whatever? What do they do?
most do. Not many.
Most do, okay.
Yeah. We haven't had that
That's good.
incident yet,
Yeah.
but.
Okay.
If it comes down to that, is that something we as a council can decide to work with employees on? Or is it like, that's the law, man, you gotta use your sick days? Or is that something we can?
It's something I have discretion on if you want me to.
Well, again, we'll see what happens when OSHA actually comes out with, you know, their actual rules, and then we can respond at that time. All right, my friends. All right, nothing else, then our first item on the agenda is AT1, Amendment to Chapter 75 of the Code of the City of Lockport regulating unlicensed off-road vehicles.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, the impetus behind this amendment to Chapter 75 is based upon complaints that the city staff has received regarding ATVs kind of being loud, damaging property, going on, trespassing on private property, just kind of running amok. We've received complaints on the noise and the damage to the property. So like other communities like Village of Homer Glen and also Village of Frankfurt, they passed an ordinance that would give the city a tool, police department tool, to address that issue, and that is making sure that these operators are operating in a manner that is prudent. You know, you can't go on private property unless you have permission. You can't be driving, you know, recklessly. You have to make sure that if you are, you know, on any public right-of-way, that you have the authority to do that. And this will allow the city to issue citation to the operators. It also has a parental responsibility component. So if you are a minor and your parents have allowed you, or they should have supervised you, and you're out there creating havoc around, around Faro, around Prologis, and, you end up being a minor, the parent could be ticketed. So it puts the onus on the parents to make sure that you don't give your child a ATV and let them run like crazy. So it's something that I think a lot of communities are doing. We have proposed a fine of $500 up to $1,500. That's it depends on the circumstances. If the offender wanted to request a trial and it turns out to be their second or third time that they were ticketed, yeah, you could ask for the maximum fine. It also has an impoundment component where if you have an outstanding fine that you didn't pay related to this offense, or it was an egregious offense, then the police officer can have that vehicle impounded and they have to pay their outstanding fine or $500, whichever is greater. So this is something that staff is recommending, and if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Yes, what I would, I thank you for responding to my emails earlier today or regarding this. What I would like to see is, because our neighboring town to the east recently upped their fines to a specific level, I think we should be at the equal level as their fines in case we have anything that goes cross-border. So I know that they're at $1,000. So I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with a fine. I would be fine with being even with having the same level fine as they do. I'm not hesitant to think that, oh, well, it's someone who's a minor or someone who's below a certain age on those, because they didn't buy the device. That device was bought for them. So I would like to see it at 1,000 just because it matches what we recently had increased on the east side. And that's just the one thing. But I do like the fact that we are addressing this, because specifically it is increasing a lot in the area. And there are a lot of incursions on private property. There are a lot of incursions on public right-of-way. There are a lot of incursions where people have to move off of walking paths because of what they see. And I know that there are some subdivisions that have had to pay for damage because of this. So I do like that we're bringing this more to the front. Thank you.
If the minimum is 1,000, does the maximum need to be 2,000, or how does that play out?
It could be any amount. I mean, specifically, the home-rule municipality is limited to about I think the fine, I mean, you could have a fine up to 7,000, it's been upheld, but I wouldn't go up there. If the minimum fine is 1,000, you don't necessarily have to increase the maximum to 2,000 or 3,000. You could just have a flat fine of 1,000 if you wanted, or you could have 1,000, maximum of 2,000. Most of the fines, most of the ordinance tickets, rarely do you ever reach the maximum.
And there, sorry, apologies. There is, any officer does have the ability to determine whether it's a warning or a fine.
They can, they have the discretion, but we want to be mindful that that discretion is being equally applied.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to comment too. I would agree too with Mark that I suggest the fines increase as well to what
I actually
other
would
towns
rather
are.
see it stay at 500, and if there's damages incurred, then whoever's getting the ticket, if they're the ones that have actually done the damage, then they have to cover the damages. I mean, are these errant drivers, like you said, are they teenagers just out having fun in the fields, or are they, I mean,
It's a little bit of both. We've had teenagers, we've had young adults. I don't know, the damages is an interesting angle, but
The ordinance already
the ordinance,
addresses
yeah,
that.
addresses some of that, so
I mean,
they would
thanks
have to
to
prepare for that.
COVID, these kids have had no school for the last year, so it could be why the numbers are increasing. They're out there because they
Sure. I
have
think
nothing else to do.
the
So,
discretionary,
I think $1,000 on the first offense is like super high.
yeah. Well, it's supposed to be a deterrent, right? So,
Right, that's why I agree, the fee should be higher. It's a deterrent.
Is the concern, Mark, that if you live near the border that, well, let's go right in Lockport because you'll get a higher fee if I'm on the other side of this line in Homer? Is that why I feel like it should be the same?
It could be Yes, that would be part of the aspect, but also if it's equal, there's no question that there is a unified approach to this because it is a serious issue. The one thing that I had raised with Sunny via email and with Ben was, I think this language should also be given to Lockport Township for the unincorporated areas, and hopefully if they could mirror the same language, there's a better enforcement, but also there's a better ability to tell people, you can't ATV down the bike paths, you can't ATV down the middle of the streets, or you can't cut through someone's yard because you want to get somewhere else, because it's unified. Because you could argue this is unincorporated, well, this is the township, or this is part of city. But if we have a neighboring town that just updated their policy and it is at 1,000, and they do have actually more open space than we do, I wouldn't have a problem going to 1,000. Most of the people that I've seen me doing this are adults, and they're using things bigger than your child-sized dirt bikes. So
That's interesting about, you know, if we end up passing this, that we send it over to the township, just give them a call, both Steve and Ron, and say, listen, gents, maybe this is something to consider, so that way we can really, you know, because here's what I find the problem. I know what you're saying, Renee. It's like, yeah, these poor kids, they got nothing to do. The rub is, if a kid was just like going 10 miles an hour past my house to get to some field he's allowed to drive in, I could care less. But they do like a wheelie through all the stop signs, and like it's 60 miles an hour. I'm like, you know, you use some discretion, man. Just like do 10 miles an hour and part of your way to the field. But it just amazes me that that's what they do. And so I think that the recklessness side of it is it really is problematic. I haven't seen it on my street. Actually, it was before COVID where they used to zip up and down the street a lot. But, well, I actually think, Mark, you're right. If the Village of Homer is at 1,000, we're 1,000, and then we talk to the townships, and if they can be on board, it's almost like a unified policy. Everybody knows this in the region. I think that does make sense to me.
It may have to be county as well. We'll have to check with the sheriff's office, because I'm not sure if the township has to follow the county ordinance or how that works, but we'll send it on to both and see. And if we make it 1,000, maybe we don't need a max, because the ordinance says that if there's any damage, they have to be responsible for that too. So maybe it's just there's no need to impugn on top of it.
The township itself wouldn't be enforcing, it would be the Will County deputies enforcing.
Through their IGA, right? And they use police powers.
You know, because I don't
through
think the
county.
township have their own police
They
officers.
don't, it's a sheriff, Will County Sheriff.
So is it we pass this on to the sheriff then and ask them, or does it need to get done through the township first and then the sheriff would enforce it, I guess?
Most likely, the Will County does law enforcement. If there's any ordinances, most likely it would be the Will County deputies issuing the citation, and that will be in their non-home rule communities. So they may be limited on what they can pass and regulate beyond the statutory authority to do so.
We can share it with our board members and of the county, and we can share it with the sheriff and get some feedback from them.
Also, we need to make sure that we get the word out then, somehow, because just passing it and being, you know, even with all the other villages, we need to make sure that the residents know. And I'm not quite sure how that can be handled, you know, either by special letter, maybe in the water.
Facebook would be good too,
or
yeah,
Facebook,
sure,
yeah.
because maybe the younger,
But I am finding that the drivers of some of these dirt bikes and so forth, and, you know, four-wheeler, three-wheeler, whatever they are, they're minors. They don't even have a license. I have had that happen in even my neighborhood. For whatever reason, the parents buy, you know, these vehicles, and they let their minor children, under 16, they don't even have a license, and they're driving them. So this is something that we really need to get a handle on and get the word out that a minor shouldn't be driving that type of vehicle, any kind of vehicle, and that this is going to be put in place.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are for like riding a vehicle like that on property that either you own or is allowable. In fact, I don't even think you need a license to drive a car if you're 10, as long as it's your own property. You could do what you want. It's for driving on regular roads. But I agree with you. The problem is, it's getting there. You don't put it on a trailer and take it to the field, that's fine, man. And if it's a field you're allowed to ride in.
They're driving and they're going through people's,
Right.
you know, common areas, especially with townhomes and stuff.
All right,
Going
well,
through a common area.
certainly, if we end up passing this, then we will make sure we put it on social media, we could put a note in the water bill, just, we're not out to like, this isn't about like a way to make money, it's not a way to like, be punitive, but it's really about like, just stop riding them in the street, stop cutting through
Safety,
people's
safety,
yards. And
So are we gonna go forward with increasing the fine?
do you guys want to just do a flat 1,000? Are we okay with that?
That's what everyone else is charging, isn't that?
I would say at least 1,000, again, as a deterrent. It happens by me all the time.
Sonny, the reason you asked for the fluctuation, was that because of first, second, third offense?
Yeah, and obviously, sometimes when you have the fine a little bit too excessive, and then you end up having unequal enforcement regarding someone getting a warning, someone don't, then there is subject to, hey, you are using this as a way of, targeting one group versus the other. So, and there's been some ordinances that have been attacked because it was excessive fine, for the type of offense. I wouldn't say 1,000 is excessive or anything like that, but, I looked at 500. In fact, my original proposal was 350 because, I know that a lot of the operators are minors, and sometimes you give them a $350 ticket, and that scares the crap out of them, instead of the overkill of a $1,000 ticket. So I
The
think,
$1,000 one will stop.
and that could be.
We have
And,
seen
yeah.
riders get 2 or 3 tickets worth several $100s, and they're still out there.
Yeah. So it is a deterrent, the amount, and it could be just 1,000 flat, or, minimum 1,000 and then maximum 1,500.
Why don't we make it 1,000 and come back as action if you want to change anything, or?
How would we handle holidays and events like Old Canal Days, where I often see golf carts going around the streets? I see them a lot on Halloween, 4th of July. They're not always
supposed to.
kids. A lot of the time they're adults and parents and whatnot. So, is this just, across the board?
They're not supposed to,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just it,
And again, I think, I don't know if it was Alderman Lopes who mentioned this, or Alderwoman Saban, but it depends on the circumstances. If you have somebody, I think it might have been the mayor, if you have someone like recklessly crossing over, causing all that noise, then that's a pretty egregious violation. You're going to get complaints. These are complaint-driven, tickets. We're not out there like every time someone's in a golf cart, we're going to go out and get the officer to issue a citation. It's complaint-driven. And if someone is driving in a reckless manner across someone's yard and trespassing, then that's when it will come into play.
A lot of those golf carts are Lockport employees actually going back and forth working, so.
And
You don't want to take it down.
Maybe me.
Can the golf carts be licensed?
They can,
they
yes,
can
they
be by
can.
ordinance, yeah.
Most are not.
Yeah, you can do a lot, but there's a lot of things you gotta do. You have a seatbelt on it, you
You
have
have to have lights, you can have seatbelts.
Do tractors fall under this ordinance? Because for some reason, my neighborhood, I have the tractor who has the couch in the back of his, and he's driving his family around, sitting in a couch in the back of his tractor.
This has to be unlicensed vehicle.
I don't think this is a licensed tractor.
Wasn't that a 2022 John Deere model? with the sofa in the back?
But
Yeah.
it's constantly around my neighborhood.
I guess technically, and if somebody were to complain about it, and again, this is where I sympathize. It's when I've seen it where, like I said, they just blow through stop signs, they're doing wheelies, they just, remember when they were doing circles around the police car like 2 years ago? And
And the guy crashed into it.
yeah, and then he crashed into the,
That's what, yeah, that's what I was gonna say, the safety of these individuals. We had one run into the back of our squad car at Division and Cedar.
all right, well, let's do this. Why don't we'll do a flat 1,000, we'll put it on as an action item as recommended. If anybody thinks differently by next week, then we can tweak it then, so. All right, thank you. Brent, this is you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council.
This evening, we have one item, PW-1 on the agenda. This is for a letter of credit reduction for Phase 5 north of Lago Vista. As with all of our letter of credit reductions, this is dependent upon us receiving a maintenance bond of 10%. That 10% is in place for 1 year. So essentially, this evening, we would be asking for council's consideration to accept all of the improvements, release the letter of credit that is in place. At such time, we would be traded the 1 year maintenance bond that would be 10% of the original letter of credit. This is all on resolution number 21-101. So this evening, I would be asking for council's consideration to approve that resolution, releasing the Lago Vista Phase 5 North letter of credit. Any questions?
Oh, sounds good. Everybody good with the consent? All right, consent. All right, any new business? And looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Larry and Renee, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Kathy, let us know. Looking for a motion to have a consent agenda this evening. Oh, yeah, sorry. So anxious to have. Yeah, roll call, please.
Here?
Here.
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 Thank you. All right, so,
Now
motion.
make a motion for the consent agenda.
Thank you, Larry. I'll give it to Larry, or to JR. All in favor? then,
Aye.
on that? Good, okay. All right, looking for approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes from September 1st, the city council meeting minutes from September 1st, our payroll period ending September 5th, our bills through September 7th, the IDOT Section 130 grant agreement with Illinois Central Railroad Company. There's the First Amendment to the Economic Incentive Agreement between the city and FCA Realty for the auto dealership. There's the approval of the intergovernmental agreement between City of Lockport and Lockport Township Park District for the approval of the I&M Canal Path. And then there's the Baxter and Woodman Consulting Engineering Division Street Phase 1 improvements. So looking for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we got Larry and JR again. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
I want that so bad.
All right, our first
Cover up the price.
resolution here tonight is awarding the Canal Bike Path Improvements Project from 2nd to 6th Street to Schroeder Asphalt Company. It's the amount of $172,000. This is, so I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution 21-102. That's Renee. Second, JR. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, I do need to present a correction on the resolution. The amount should be $172,648.41. So if I could ask an amendment, a motion to amend the original motion to reflect the corrected amount of $172,648.41.
Okay. You want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
All right, JR and
Larry.
Larry. And then this would be a vote on that motion to amend to correct that amount.
all right, so that's our first vote.
Yes.
You just need a roll call?
Yeah, for the motion to amend.
Okay, Saban.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Lopes.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Delogly.
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
And Kostecki.
Yes.
And then the vote would be to approve the motion as amended with that corrected amount.
All right. Larry and JR, you guys want to do it again?
Make a motion to accept the
You-
amendment.
You don't need, you
Don't
already
need that
did
motion?
the original,
All right.
well, yes, so
All right,
it's
so
just
now
a
we'll
roll
just do a
call.
roll call
Yep.
on
Okay.
that amended.
They did it again.
Doesn't have to give a presentation.
Yes.
You want it? You can.
Yes?
Yes.
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 All right. Shoot, there was something I was just going to say in our new business. I forgot what it was. Nobody wants to hear it anyway. All right. Looking for a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
Larry, seconded by Renee. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.